for tuning in to Coder Conversations once again. Tonight we have a very special guest from the legendary game show, The Legend of the Hidden Temple, Kirk Fogg. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to see you. I wish I had a little audience so they go, yay. You go, yeah, nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Yeah. No, thanks a lot for coming on, man.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks.
So yeah, that was a legendary game show, 90s. I believe it ran from 93 to 95. Is that correct?
It did. Yeah, it felt like it was longer because it ran so long in reruns, but it was only two years or a little over 2 years, and it was 100. We'd shot 120 shows.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm. When we go to Orlando, we'd shoot 40 in a month or 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever we did it in, because we'd shoot like 4 or 5 a day.
Wow.
Wow. So they have really had you working.
Yes, cheaply.
Oh man. So yeah, you mind getting a little bit into that?
What?
Just like how you negotiate. How did you become the host of the show, and then how did you negotiate the contracts, etc.? Like, I'm sure people are curious.
Yeah, it's funny. It was really weird. I was working at Universal. I was on the lot, and I had won a writing fellowship. I had written a screenplay back in New York, and when I came out to LA, I continued and I finished it, and then I got a contact with somebody, and they liked it so much they said, "Oh, we should submit this to this thing called the Chesterfield Writing Fellowship," and I submitted it, and I won. And it was actually, I got to write and be on the Amblin studio or Amblin lot inside of Universal for a year. And I got to write 2 more screenplays. And and I got to meet Spielberg, obviously, and I got to meet a bunch of great people. But
awesome.
In the middle of that, I was just a commercial actor mostly. I was trying to get pilots and stuff like that. But what ended up, it was just one of those days where had been doing commercials, but all of a sudden I got a call, and I could do other things while I was writing. And I got a call to do this thing called Legends of the Hidden Temple. And I think they called me directly. And they got my picture out of this thing here, analog here. They used to have this book called the Screen Actor Guild book, and you could pay to put your photo in it. And then it cost you like $50 a year. And every once in a while, you might get a phone call out of it. And they did. They went through the book, they saw my face, and they gave me a call, and I came in, and it happened to be on the Universal lot. And I think they were shooting or producing The Man Show. Do you know that show?
I remember that.
Yeah, I think it was. That was with Adam Carolla and I don't want to say it's Joe Rogan, but it was somebody like that. But anyway,
yeah,
they were shooting that, and I ended up going into a bungalow and doing this crazy audition. They had me doing the Temple Run. And they kind of described the game show, but I couldn't figure out what they were doing. But they had this board up, and they had this guy, Johnny, going through the temple. And it looked to me like a football broadcast a little bit. That's the first thing I thought about. I go, well, this is like something my brother and I would do, like Johnny's got the ball at the 30, he's going to the 20, 15, touchdown. So I just,
yeah.
So I just used my my play-by-play, my brother and I play-by-play voice, and I got the job, oddly enough. And they called me and they said, "We like you, and we'd like you to go to Orlando, Florida." And I was like, "Okay." I still don't know what you are, but I'll go.
I'll go. Yeah.
I'll go. Whatever is paying, right? And it's like, you're only going to be there for like 3 weeks. So I said, sure, I'll go. So I flew to Orlando, and we got, but we did have to negotiate. You asked about the contract. We had to negotiate a contract. Well, wasn't going through my agent. So because it was a non-union gig, So I called my friend, and I knew her. She was my bar manager when I was a bartender in New York, and she was a business major out of Miami. So I was like, "Hey, Stephanie," I said, I think I got this show, but I don't want to. I can't just negotiate by myself. So can you help me?" So she stepped in and helped me. So bar manager came in. We struck a deal. I probably didn't do well, but we struck a deal.
Yeah, that seems to be the story of a lot of entertainers in music or TV. They don't necessarily get the best deals their first time around.
Right. And by the way, Nickelodeon or Stone Stanley, who produced the show, didn't get the best deal either, because they did a deal with Nickelodeon. This is, I don't know this, can't say this for a fact, but they did the deal with Nickelodeon, and I think they were banking on the fact that after their first contract, their next contract would be the big contract. And then before we ended up doing, after our third season, which I think they were contracted for three seasons, then they didn't get picked up.
Oh man. But
Yeah.
Something that was really interesting is you seem to get that opportunity by coming in through the side door. You were a writer before anything, correct?
Yeah, I was. Well, I was so I started out of college. I went to Cal State Fullerton, if you know where that is, if you've ever heard of it.
Now I'm from Texas, so I don't know too much about that.
Yeah, no, I've heard of it. I used to live out in LA for 10 years.
Right. Well, they did really well back in the late 70s in basketball, and they were a Cinderella basketball team, and nobody knew who Cal State Fullerton was, so they called them Cal State Disneyland because we were right next to Disneyland.
Oh, that's funny.
So anyway, I went to Cal State Fullerton. I was in a fraternity. By the way, I have to say this because it's awesome, but I joined this fraternity called Delta Chi, and when I got initiated, they brought in an established or a distinguished alumni to do the initiation, and they brought me into the room, and it's a big mind F in fraternities. And then, of course, they told me that I wasn't going to make it. Of course, I'd been through the whole semester. My grades were tanking. And now I was failing my fraternity, and they were going to kick me out because they said I didn't pass the test. Well, nobody ever passes the test, but they brought me in. They told me I'm going to pass the test. I'd been sitting in a room for hours and hours, and they wear you down. And then they brought me into the room to the distinguished alumni, and he told me that I was a piece of crap and that I didn't deserve to be in the fraternity and to get out of here. What are you doing? Get him out of here! And they threw me out of the room. Well, that distinguished alumni was Kevin Costner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then of course, after 2 hours of sitting in a bathroom waiting, they brought me back out, and then they said, "Well, it looks like a lot of people are behind you, and you get to make it in the fraternity." And I was like, "Oh, okay, great, thanks." But anyway, I studied acting at Cal State Fullerton a little bit. I was a PR major, but I got into the acting for non-majors unit, and I did that. I loved it, so I stayed another year at Fullerton. And then I got out of Fullerton. Then I went to work, and I got a job at Universal, and I worked on a TV show called, I'm going to date myself now, but it was called The Fall Guy. You've probably seen the new Fall Guy, but this is the original Fall Guy. And I was a casting associate, and I did that for about 3 months, and then they fired me because I was a horrible secretary. And, and then I went back to Fullerton, or I went back to Orange County. And I moved in with my buddy, and he said, "You know where you need to go work?" And I go, "Where?" Because I need a job. Is broke. He goes, "You're going to need to work at TGI Fridays." You ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, TGI Fridays was a big bar in the 80s. And it was actually, there was a movie called Cocktail with Tom Cruise. Did you ever see that?
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, and he was this big bartender. Well, I ended up becoming a bartender for TGI Fridays. And from there, I became the #1 bartender, and then and the motto for TGI Fridays is we work hard, we play hard, which means we work really hard and then we get really drunk after work. And
Right.
and then I got really good at bartending, and I became like the Tom Cruise bartender. And me and my buddy, the same guy got me the job, and this other guy ended up getting recruited, and we went to Paris, France, and opened a bar. They wanted a TGI Fridays American bar in Paris. So they recruited us and brought us over there, and we bartended over there for 3 months.
Wow.
And yeah, it was
Awesome.
unbelievable. Yeah.
Wow.
80% of the employees were women.
Oh man.
Okay.
Sounds like a dream.
And they said to us in a meeting, all in French, they were like, j'entends, friend, but professional. That's what the only thing we understood. They said, friend, but professional. In other words, you can be friendly with these guys, but you have to remain professional.
Right.
They did not. They did not adhere to that code. So, yes. So I bartended over there, and then after 3 months, I went home, and then I decided I wanted to go back on my own. So I sold everything and went back to Paris on my own and worked at a place called the Hollywood Savoy after struggling in Paris, making no money. But I worked at this place called the Hollywood Savoy, and I bartended and sang at this bar. It was awesome. It had all these, it had a band, and then all the waiters and bartenders sang. And then we even would get one night we got the Hells Angels came in, and it was really weird. They didn't show up on motorcycles. They all came in taxi cabs, and they all came out, and they came into our restaurant, and it was a crazy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was so great. It was packed all night, and I'm getting the short of the long of the story is, or the long of the short of the story. From after that, I got the acting bug again, and I decided, you know what, I got to do something with my life. And I decided to move to New York and study acting for real. So I did. I flew to New York from Paris, and I stayed in New York for 4 years and studied really hard, studied with really good acting coaches, and then started working. And then I did my very first movie. It was a little space adventure sci-fi movie called Alien Space Avenger. And did you guys ever see Goodfellas?
Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you remember the girl who plays his girlfriend and he puts up in that apartment? He has that affair with that girl. He has her in the apartment.
Yeah.
Ray Liotta. That girl and I did our first movies together.
Oh wow.
wow.
She ended up going on and doing Jungle Fever, and she did a bunch of other things, and then she eventually died. She had a really bad heart condition, and she died.
Oh, that's sad.
I know. So anyway, then from New York, I decided to go ahead and try LA, and that's how I got to LA. And that's what got me to LA.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It seems like you can never predict where your life will take you next.
You know, it's so crazy, right? You just sort of stay open. I don't know. I was young, and you know, I was. I think you have to stay that way your whole life, really. I think you have to be open. You know, you get stuck, and as soon as you get stuck, and you think that it can't be any other way, I think that is that's a trap. And not to say that you can't settle and all that stuff, which I have, but you have to be open to seeing which doors are opening, especially in the business.
You want to dream. You still want to dream big, even as you age, I think.
You better. I think you better. I mean, for me, maybe some people don't want that. I mean, I didn't particularly choose the conservative, like, you know, I worked for the city for 35 years and then I retire. I didn't pick that path. And I'm not saying that's a bad path.
Sure.
But that's not the path. I don't think it's the path you guys are choosing. So
no, not at all.
You just have to sort of stay open, and you know, I'm even to this day, I'm being challenged. You know, I'm like having to figure out what is the next move.
Yeah, it's really interesting because both of us are introverts, and me being a public speaker, that never was really into the cards for me. But sometimes it seems like God just pushes you in a direction that you don't expect, and you have to jump on it because that's where the doors are going to start to open.
Exactly. It's so weird too. I was just talking about this with this lady the other day because we were talking about going down and doing an ayahuasca trip down to Costa Rica. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I was like,
I have experience with that from LA with these rich hippies.
yeah, exactly. So it is a rich hippie thing. So, and I had a friend of mine who did that. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable. He did it. He went down there. He's a fraternity brother of mine, and he went down there. He's an older guy, and he went down there, and his son had tragically died like a year before, and he drowned in a lake up in Northern California, and they never understood how he drowned. And maybe most of us kind of thought, well, maybe he probably drank too much, and went out on the canoe
Sure.
and drowned.
Sure.
But
Yeah, right.
it didn't quite make sense. So he went down there and did the ayahuasca trip, and he his son appeared to him, and his son showed him exactly how he died in that trip. And he said that he fell out of the canoe, his feet hit the muddy bottom with his shoes on, and they got stuck and he couldn't get back up.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, I was talking to this person about this ayahuasca trip, and I said, I can't even remember why I was talking about this. Just about being. Oh, I was talking about when the thing that changed my life. It was the weirdest thing. I had a breakdown when I was like 24 years old. Like, I don't know how much. Can we talk about anything here?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I did some mushrooms back when I was 24 years old. Same guy, the guy whose son died. He would always come up with these great ideas. So I did mushrooms. And at the time I was working at Fridays, and I bought a new condo with a buddy of mine, and I was making pretty good money, but it really wasn't really what I wanted to be doing, right? Because I didn't know what, if it had any legs. And my buddy says, "Hey, I got some mushrooms. When we come over and we'll do it." And I wasn't feeling very well. I was kind of feeling like I had the flu, and I go, "I don't know, Pat." I said, "I feel kind of flu-y. I don't want to do this." And he says, "Oh, I don't know how long I'm going to have these mushrooms," which I thought was a strange thing. I said, "Well, what do you mean you don't know how long? Nobody's going to come and take them from you." So,
Yeah, right.
right. So I said, "Oh, okay, come on over, Pat." So he came over. We did the mushrooms, and I had never done them before. And then it started to affect me, and it was weird. And this is what I tell people. I said, if you are feeling uneasy or you're feeling ill, it will affect you in a very strange way. And it kind of did. It kind of gave me a bad trip, and I went down, and it brought me to a place where I was really upset, and I realized the truth. The truth of the matter was I was okay with what I was doing, but I wasn't happy, and this wasn't what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be doing something else with my life. I said, and I'm not ungrateful. Yeah. I'm not ungrateful, but this was not the path. And I think I broke down and cried, and it was just like an unbelievable experience. And that's when a few days later, I get a phone call from somebody who says, "We want you to go to Paris, France to be a bartender."
Wow.
Out of nowhere.
That's amazing.
And that to me was God. That's God like saying, "Okay, you got clear on what you wanted and what you didn't want." And the door opened, and that was the door. And that changed my life completely, because I never changed after that. It took me on this other trajectory. So
So you followed the door that God had opened for you, basically.
Correct. Right.
Was
Right.
there like a point where you were maybe hesitant on going down that door and maybe just playing it safe and continuing to do the safe thing that you're always doing?
Well, the job seemed really good, but what was so strange is that we finished the job, and when I came home, um, I knew my job I wasn't finished with it, you know? So I could have come back and then gone back into a restaurant business or whatever. But when I came back home, I started, I just remember this. I was laying out by the pool in this condo complex that I lived at. And I saw this, I'll never forget, I saw this super large headed woman floating in the pool. And it just, I don't know what it did. It freaked me out. And it was like some big, large headed woman with a bathing cap. And I was like, it just said to me, this is not where I want. I don't know why I connect the two, but it was like, plus I had just come back from Paris where, you're around, 18th century buildings, right? I have severe culture shock because then I'm in a condo that was built like 5 years prior. So I'm
wow, yeah, that's a bit of a different change of pace for you.
Right, like a total culture shock, and I just go, I don't want to do this, and that's when I decided, no, I got to keep going. So that's when I sold everything and went back to Paris, and then I really was hanging loose because I really didn't have a plan. There was nobody there to take care of me. It was like
in Paris, was there a large English speaking community there, or how were you able to pick up and blend in?
yeah, and it's funny when you go over there, I didn't even know, like, if you know Paris, there's the main boulevard. It's called the Champs-Élysées, and when they said, "Oh, your bar is going to be on the Champs-Élysées," and I'm like, "Whoa!" In the Champs-Élysées, that's where the Arc de Triomphe is. It's like the Grand Boulevard, and I didn't know anything about Paris. I'm like, "Well, is it a safe area?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, don't worry, it's a safe area." But
Yeah.
yeah, and then they said, "Don't worry, everybody speaks English." And we said, "Oh, okay, well, perfect." So we got there, and of course, French people speak English, but only when they want to.
Only when they want to. Yeah, Italians are like that too.
Right. So what you learn when you go over there is you have to say, I always tell people when they go to Europe, and my son went to Europe a year ago after high school, and I said, listen, you don't have to do much, but you have to say hello in that language. You have to say, and you have to say thank you, and then you have to say goodbye. If you know those three words, they will open the doors for you. Just like in the temple, right? Just like in Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yeah.
You say the right words, all the doors will open.
All the doors will open, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really seems like doors do have to be open for you to make it to like a higher and higher level, because otherwise, it just seems like you're floundering. For example, even with this podcast, somebody had to reach out to us and say, hey, we want to put you on the radio.
Right. I mean, you guys are, I tell you, I'm in it right now myself. So I understand what you're talking about. You have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. You have to let your ego go, and you have to not pay too much attention to the voice that says, why am I doing this? What is this? What am I, crazy? What am I doing wasting my time?
Yeah.
Because you don't really know. And time again, I've been taught that you don't really know what it is what's in store for you. But if you don't do anything, if you don't play the lottery, then you won't ever have a shot at winning. So
you'll never find out. Yeah, you'll just never find out. You'll be there in limbo.
Right. And like, for instance, I did I wanted to make a movie back, right after I got married. I had a kid coming, my second kid coming, and I had bought and sold a house, and I had made a little money, and I decided I wanted to make a movie, right? And that's a crazy idea, right? Just making your own movie is a crazy idea, right? Yes, let's all agree.
Right, like Rocky.
So yeah, it's like, okay, another person wanting to make his own movie, right? I said, no, I really want to make a movie. So yeah, so I ended up spending my money. I actually got my buddy to go in with me because he was actually a successful business guy. But he and I put our money in together, and we made this movie. And it was kind of crazy because like why would I do that? I had just sold a house or a triplex that I had fixed up. I just started to learn how to do that. And then why would I take my money and spend it on something, right? Spend it on that. Why? That's like a waste of money, right?
Right.
It didn't make sense. It doesn't really make sense. Fortunately, my wife was cool enough where she said, no, I think you should do it because if you don't do it, you're going to really regret not doing it and, blah, blah, blah. So I did it. I made this movie and it almost became a super success in the sense of making a movie. I actually, it was like we finished it and it was just finished around the time of the first of the year, which happened to be the submissions for Sundance. And of course everybody goes, oh yeah, right, you're going to submit to Sundance. And I go, well, it happens to be the first one, so why not? So I submitted to Sundance.
Sure.
And then I found out I didn't get it. And I was like, yeah, well, I didn't really expect it. And then Sundance called me and they said, hey, the person who judged your film wants to talk to you. I said, do you, is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I? So it happened.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm kind of busy, but,
Yeah.
but it happened to be Tom Hanks's company. It was the woman who worked for Tom Hanks's company, Playtone. And
Wow.
she called me and she brought me in for a meeting. And basically she said, I just want to say I judged your movie. I really pushed to get your movie into the festival. And I was really disappointed that it didn't make it in. I really pushed for you. And I'm like, wow. I said, look at that. That was like super close, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I was excited about that. And then I thought to myself, wow, I said, if that came close for the Sundance, just think of the other film festivals, the lesser ones that are going to want this thing. So I submitted to all these other ones. I never got into another festival.
Oh man.
Wow.
And I'm like, why? And then I eventually found a producer, one of those people who sell low budget movies, and they ended up selling the movie and we made some money back on it. But the thing I got from it was that one of the people that I put in the film, a guy who played a cop, talked to me afterwards because he knew that I did this building thing where I fixed up this triplex and stuff like that. And he goes, hey, you like doing that? I go, yeah. He goes, I build houses. He goes, do you want to flip a house with me? And I go, yeah, because I need a job. So
yeah, right.
And so he said, well, you get the financing. So I got the buddy who ended up putting money into my little low budget movie. I got him involved and we financed it and we made it. And a year later we sold it. And that was how I started my house flipping business. And so if I wouldn't have done the movie, then I would have never met the guy who ended up giving me a career for 20 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you never really know what's gonna happen next. It almost feels like everything's orchestrated. Like, how did all of this come together? And it doesn't seem like coincidence.
Right. So obviously you guys are spiritual guys, right?
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really my whole, I'm not perfect and I definitely make lots of mistakes, but I certainly try to stay more, connected to my higher power.
Yeah, especially in the times we're in, there's just so much stuff going on. Like even recently, there's been a lot of stories about UFOs, and it's really crazy. So you have to be rooted in something.
Right.
For me, it's my faith.
Yeah, good. Yeah, this UFO thing. What is going? I was just talking to my friend about that today. I go,
it's wild, huh?
I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I said, okay, well, I guess we got UFOs coming. And every time I go on TikTok, it says, in 2 weeks they're going to get a big announcement. I'm like, oh, and here we are as a public now. We're so kind of like, nothing phases us anymore. We're just like, oh, okay, UFOs. Oh, okay. I guess we got some extraterrestrials coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, whatever. What
Yeah.
time's that game on? What time's that game on tonight?
Right. There's so much
Exactly.
happening.
Right. I mean, it's like, oh, and all the droids that are the drones that are hanging out on the East Coast, and is it the mothership of Iran or is it UFOs? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, enough already, right?
Yeah, so much going on that any one event, it just doesn't seem that spectacular. Like, the president almost got assassinated, or the president elect, and now
Right.
we just moved on to something else.
Right, exactly. I mean, even that, yeah, even after he got assassinated, I remember somebody came into my room and they said, "Oh my God, he's going to be the president. He's going to be the next president." But I say, "Yeah, but wait, in 2 weeks, everybody's going to forget about it."
Exactly.
That really bothered that part. This part really bothers me is about how much. I read something yesterday. I was like, "What happened in I was like, my dad was born in 1933, and I said, "What happened in 1933?" And so I Googled it, and there was so much that happened on a daily basis around the world in 1933. But I bet back in 1933, they thought things were pretty slow, and there was probably not a lot of news, right? Just some real basic stuff. But because of the internet, we just know way too much too often. We
Too
just
soon. Too much. Too soon.
too
Yeah.
much too soon, all the time,
Yeah.
every day. We know too much.
Every day. Yeah. No break.
No, it's like we used to think CNN or Fox News or whatever 24/7. It was like in the 24/7 news cycle. I don't remember it being like that until, I don't know if you guys remember, but back when the first Iraq war, the one when the invasion of Kuwait.
Is that a
And
Desert Storm?
and that was the Desert Storm. That was really the first 24/7. That's when I think the 24/7 news cycle began.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it was just nonstop. And then they said, "Hey, we can make money on this 24/7 stuff."
Yep. And here we are today.
Right. So do you believe in the UFO stuff?
Oh, well, I have an alternative opinion on it. If you want to go first, I'll let you, and then I'll chime in with what I think it is.
No, I want to hear yours.
Okay, so, well, I'm a Christian, obviously, and there's a lot of stuff about the end times. I don't know if you've ever delved into that kind of stuff.
Yes. Yes.
But, how the Bible says in the end times there'll be a great deception,
Mhm.
and I believe those aren't necessarily aliens, but more like interdimensional beings, more like the demonic presence. So, in the Bible, how they talk about the rapture, the Christians that be taken away before the great tribulation. So society's going to need a way to explain that away. And what better way than to, introduce these quote unquote aliens and say, oh, they've whisked, I used to be into like New Age and the UFOlogy community, and they used to talk about like humanity evolving to the next level, right? And I've also noticed they would say something along the lines of like Christians, they're holding the evolution of human consciousness back, so they need to be removed. And that was a theme in that community. So I kind of believe that is part of that great deception, along with artificial intelligence and the robots and all of this stuff coming. I could delve deeper into that, but yeah, that's just a little bit of it.
And what is okay? And what's your other and who and okay? And then the
Oh, you wanted me to elaborate a little bit more?
No, yeah, go ahead. Keep
Okay.
going. Or both of you, or whatever. I want to hear both sides.
Brian, did you want to go? And I can elaborate further because
Brian, do you want to go?
different.
Sure. Yeah. So I believe in aliens. I believe in UFOs, extraterrestrials, or whatever you want to call them. The reason I believe in them is I saw a UFO when I was younger. I used to be in a hardcore punk band, and I grew up in Connecticut, and we were touring. We were playing a show in New York State, and we're coming back at night, and it's, I don't know, maybe 12 o'clock, 1 a.m. We're coming back, we're in the van, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see this thing way up in the sky. It's about the size of a house, size of a 2-floor house, and it's all white, just piercing white. And all of a sudden, it's almost like it knew I was looking at it. All of a sudden, it drops all the way down to the ground within a second or less than a second.
Okay, now,
And
Brian, were you high?
no, I wasn't.
Okay.
I was
Just
not. I
check-
was not.
just check.
Was not under the influence of anything. So yeah, see this huge white light, looks like a house, and it just drops straight down within a second or something similar to that. And I turned to my guitarist. I'm like, hey, did you just see that? He's like, yeah, what was that? That was the size of a house. I said, yeah, I know. And it just dropped all the way down to the ground. And he's like, yeah, that was crazy. And no one else in the band saw it, but me and the guitarist saw it. We're like, yeah, that must be a UFO. And I did a little research when we got back home. That area that we were passing in New York State, that's where a military base is, or some kind of government facility. So I feel like they were testing out, some reverse engineered technology or something to do with aliens.
Right. Wow. Okay. And where did that, when it hit the ground, like how far away was it when it went to the ground? Could tell how far away it was, or was it sort of indecipherable?
It was pretty far away from. We were kind of driving through the woods, so it was kind of on the other side of the trees.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it could have been you couldn't really tell distance wise because it disappeared.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
and
correct.
And you think once you looked at it, you felt like it saw you, or you saw it saw you?
Yeah, because the second I became aware of it, it dropped down out of sight. So it just seemed like, oh, it noticed that me and my buddy just saw it, so it's going to go and hide now.
Oh my God. Did that freak you out?
So I found it really interesting. I remember talking to the rest of the band about it. They're like, no way. I'm like, yeah, me and Evan, the guitarist, were like, we just saw it. It was like the size of a house, bright white light, and then all of a sudden just shot down to the ground in the way that no technology that we know of can move like that.
Right.
It's kind of more of futuristic kind of a technology that's able to do that, something that we don't have yet. So, me and the guitarist were like, yeah, I think that was definitely a UFO. I was just kind of fascinated by it, and it opened my eyes to any stories I heard about UFOs after that. I'd always be like, well, yeah, I saw one, so that's probable, it's possible.
Wow.
Yeah, for me, I haven't seen any of these like interdimensional beings, but this is just from the research that I've done. Like Jack Parsons from NASA, right? He was head of the the rocket research at that time. Well, he was actually really close friends with Aleister Crowley, and he was also like a Satanist, So this is like, how did we go from horse and carriage? How did we go from really primitive technology to like 100 years later, we're flying into outer space? If just based on basic science, evolution takes billions of years, our brains wouldn't be able to evolve fast enough to be able to handle this kind of knowledge, to be able to do these sorts of things. So Um, I believe that we're getting this knowledge from somewhere. And, you know, when we talk about extraterrestrials, the modern research, it says they're coming from the water, right? A lot of these
Yeah.
UFOs, they're coming up out of the water.
Right.
The explanation for that is, so back in the days of Noah, you remember in the Bible, it talks about Noah and the flood.
Yep.
So what they say in those days were, you know, there was Nephilim also walking the earth, which is the offspring of fallen angels and humans, and you know they produced these giants,
Yep.
and they were among those that got destroyed in the great flood, and it said they were disembodied spirits. So you know, a lot of these light orbs and things like, when I used to be into the kind of like that new age, you know, people say they would see like these light orbs at cemeteries and stuff like that. So I'm kind of the impression maybe that's some kind of spiritual entity manifested in our world. So, you know, a lot of these UFOs and things of that nature, they might be, you know, disembodied spirits manifesting, and you know them coming out of the water. The ones that were able to survive were the ones that were able to breathe underwater. The rest got destroyed. So the ultimate purpose of, you know, the I call it the alien deception is, you know, in the Bible it says, you know, the humankind, they're going to war against Jesus. So what is going to convince them? What is going to round everybody up to come under one banner? And I believe even George Bush, he said it, like there needs to be a UFO threat to unite humanity. So it's like they're gradually releasing more and more of this agenda to us to, and you know, it is going to
You mean
unite.
to try to force us into the one world order?
Yes, correct. That the new world order, as they say. And
Right. We want to stay away from that.
exactly. And the other component of that is AI. You know, the Bible
Yep.
speaks of the beast in Revelation, right? And
Right.
how the beast, it says humans going to worship the image of the beast. And, you know, if you want to be alive, you need to get the mark where if you get it, then, you know, there's no coming back from that. But otherwise, you can't buy or sell if you don't have that mark. What I found interesting about that, it says they should worship the image of the beast. So the beast and its image is separate, which is like AI. AI does not have a manifestation. So it needs an image. It needs to produce an image for people to worship. And, you know, we do have the technology now, Neuralink, which connects to the, you know, it's a brain implant chip. And we also
Well,
have
that's
like,
the Elon Musk's stuff.
yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
Elon Musk.
Which I like Elon Musk, but I'm a little bit torn between his technology and him. But you know, first of all, he said. So I sort of tend to believe more towards the UFO stuff, and I don't know if we're working in conjunction with it, you know, or how that's working. I don't know, the chicken and the egg, right? It's like, is this a lot of reverse engineering stuff, or are they still here, or are they still monitoring, or you know, I don't know. But I heard Elon Musk talk about it, and he goes, "I've never seen a UFO." So he doesn't really he not that he doesn't believe in it, but he says he hasn't seen one.
Right.
So what do you think? How do you reckon that? I mean,
Um,
here's a guy who is trying to send us to Mars, right?
right. Yeah, that's really curious. Why are they so concerned with going to Mars when Earth has enough problems of its own? It's like
Yeah.
that it's a pointed mission for them to escape the Earth by a certain time period.
Yeah, no, I find that really interesting about Elon Musk. It's like, okay, yeah, let's get to Mars, let's build civilization on Mars. And I'm just thinking, why don't we try things here? You know, why don't we try to like make things work here with the climate change and everything? Let's try some of your ideas for Mars out on the US. You know,
Right.
let's try things here first, see if they work, see if they're helpful, and then maybe think about Mars. But I think at this point in time, we need to be thinking about the Earth.
I think that seems sort of valid. I mean, I know they've also talked to, they've also, I think, they asked Trump too. Are you going to let the files out for this UFO stuff? So he seems like he's open to it, but he's not. I don't see a complete commitment to that.
Right. Isn't it a bit strange to you? Like we have these aliens, they have super advanced technology, but somehow they're always crashing on Earth, or they just
Right.
they just never just reach out and say, "Hey, here we are, guys." Like, why
Right.
do they just like fly around the sky a little bit then disappear? Like, I don't know. Is that a really intelligent behavior? Like, what would be the reason for that?
Well, then I guess I go back to my basic stuff where, okay, maybe I don't believe in UFOs. And the truth of the matter is that our government technology is so far advanced that, and it's only showing us so much, but we might be way behind the knowledge of what really is happening out there.
Yeah, really.
Well, it is similar. It's pretty similar when we think about cell phones. A place like Seoul, South Korea, they have cell phones that are far more advanced than the ones being used in the U.S. And then a year later or 2 years later, we'll get the technology and think, "Oh, this is great. This is new," but it's really not new. It's just new to Americans.
What's going on with their cell phones? Like, what do they have that we don't have?
I'm not really too up on the technology. I just heard that this is what goes on there.
So have you ever heard of the Mandela effect? Like,
yes, for sure.
Yeah, we actually did an episode on that, but I'm thinking that maybe, like you mentioned, the government's technology is so far ahead of us, maybe they can even edit timelines.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I mean that they can manipulate time, right?
Because okay, so you remember the Bernstein Bears? Like, how was that spelled? Like, how do you remember that being spelled?
Yeah, let me see if I remember that. Is it? It's not. I don't know. I can't remember. Is it BERNSTEIN? No.
So if you look it up, it's actually the Berenstain Bears, STAIN, and I don't remember that. I remember STEIN.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, well,
and everybody remembers it being STEIN. So
yeah. So I mean, every day it's like it's more and more with this technology and quantum AI and all this. I just don't know. I mean, I don't. The problem I have with AI is I just can't see how this is going to lead to good.
Yeah, we've had a lot of talks about that, kind of the doom and gloom of AI, and there's just a lot of really bad scenarios that can happen with it. We did a show recently about a kid who committed suicide after talking to a chat bot that basically said, "Come and join me." And then he's just a kid, dumb kid, playing with this technology and thinking, "Oh, okay, I kill myself, I'm going to, get to be with the chatbot in its environment or whatever." And the reality is that he's going to kill himself, and then that's lights out. It's over.
Yeah. Well, it's just that is horrifying for children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other stuff is the fraud. Just the whole fraud angle of the whole thing, and recreating people's voices, and like, look at us, like old people, and eventually I'm going to be one of those old people. I can barely freaking get on the computer. I'm going to sit there and have to manage talking about the ultimate AI spam, right?
I mean, AI is so good now that it can actually produce like songs that you wouldn't be able to tell that it wasn't written by a human, or it can now produce
Right.
video.
I don't see I don't see I don't see a lot of upside on that side. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, there's all, not to mention the jobs that are going to be lost by it. And I mean, everything has always changed over course of time. You know, I mean, the horse and buggy era was a big lucrative industry for somebody, and at some point it ends. But I don't know. I just don't want to. I don't want to see. I don't want to see humanity being eliminated. That's all.
Right. And that's pretty much like I've tried to think about it, but I can't really find a positive outcome of creating a super intelligent artificial intelligence that you unleash on the world. Like, what is you're creating a super predator that you can't stop.
Right.
yeah, and I know we've talked before about this AI, possibly being like a gigantic Ouija board. It's just all this randomness and it's populating with this X, Y, and Z. But what's the real intention behind it? Is it of a positive nature? Is it of a negative nature? Like, what's it all about? What is this AI really all about?
Yeah, what is it about? I mean, what is the what? Why would it be like? Um, why would it be something that we're all like, yes, yeah, go for it. This is great. Where's that? What's the part of that that I'm missing?
Right. Because, like even think about climate change. They're pushing a climate change agenda, but how
Mm-hmm.
are you pushing that? But AI requires nuclear power plants to run because it's consuming so much power. How do those two things mesh? Like, why are we going down that path when it's all about, living in tiny homes and, you know, driving mini cars because we're tearing the environment up? Like, why are
It
we
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't add up. It doesn't really make much sense because, yeah, you have this one dialogue of, oh, save the planet, reduce emissions. And then you have this whole other dialogue about, oh, AI is the future. We need to power AI. So we need to, use nuclear power plants to do this and other extreme methods to, power these AI. And it's funny because the government on one hand is saying, hey, reduce waste and try to conserve energy, and then at the other hand they're saying, all right, we need a ton of energy for this AI. It's kind of strange.
It is strange. Or just, I don't reckon this too with the whole, um, like, okay, so now we've decided we're going to go all electric vehicle, right?
Yep.
But the problem with the electric vehicles is that they have these gigantic batteries in them that are sort of they're the antithesis of, of what they're trying to do in terms of, resources and things. They take a huge amount of what do you do with these batteries, and then what kind of mining do you have to do to get these batteries? That's the part I don't understand. It's like, and and the fact that then you have to have. I'm not saying I'm not against electric cars. I'm just saying that I it doesn't sort of reckon in my brain because I'm like going, but wait a minute, if we got to power these things through electricity, but then doesn't coal and everything power the electric companies? So I
Yep.
don't know. It just seems like it's not like electric comes out of thin air. It has to be manufactured.
And that point about the electric cars was a great one because I've thought about it myself. I think the older cars without all of these electronics where you can remotely control the car, those are going to be like gold going forward because with all these
Means driverless ones.
even ones that you can drive, like for example my car has OnStar, so I can
Uh-huh.
turn on the engine through my phone. So if I can turn
Oh
it
yeah.
on, somebody can cut it off
Right.
remotely.
Right.
Yeah, there's a whole story. I forget the guy's name, but He was doing research on something about Obama. He was a journalist, and he was about to, break this like huge story about Obama. And then they find that, this guy dies, but by the way that he died, he was in his car and it went like 150 miles per hour down Highland Ave in LA, smashed into a tree. And so, they're just kind of like trying to figure this out. Like, this guy, okay, he's about to break this huge story. Why does he go drive his car into a tree? And why late at night? It didn't really add up. I don't know if you remember hearing about this story, but I was living a couple of blocks away from it when it happened. So people were putting up, crosses and all that kind of stuff. People put on the sides of highways where people died. So it was that kind of a situation.
Right. Yes. I don't know. Again, there's a Woody Allen movie, and it's like he wants to convert to Catholicism from Judaism, and his dad's like walking around the house. Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? He goes, don't you want to understand the existentialism of blah 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 blah? He goes, why do I care about that? I don't even know how a can opener works.
Right. I think that's Hannah and her sisters, right?
It is Hannah and her sisters. Yeah, I
love that. That's one of my favorite Woody Allen movies.
Okay. Just a side note, I was in New York watching Hannah and her sisters, and this is about, again, another pivotal point when my life was about to change. I went to go see the Hannah and her sisters. I sat in a balcony, and back then I was smoking back then, and you can smoke in the balcony. And I was sitting up there smoking a cigarette, watching Hannah and her sisters. And in Hannah and her sisters, he goes to a movie, right? And he sees the Marx Brothers movie. Do you remember that?
Right.
And he sits up there and they're watching, and it's Duck Soup. And he's sitting in the balcony watching the movie Duck Soup. Well, the movie theater he goes into is the movie theater I'm in. And he's sitting in the same place where I'm sitting watching that movie. That was the weirdest.
Oh, far out.
Yeah. So I love happy coincidences.
Yeah, like synchronicities. They say that's kind of God's way of showing us that we're on the right track. Like deja vu, things like that.
I pray for those.
Yeah, man, we really veered off a track, but it was interesting. Yeah, so like, what are you planning? How are you keeping afloat these days? I know you're thinking about rebooting the show.
I'm not going to reboot the show because that's not what I do. But I've kind of come up with this new thing, and like you said, this is one of those just putting one foot in front of the other. I started with this podcast about a year ago, and it was called Beyond the Hidden Temple, and it was okay. I did it with a buddy of mine who's also good co-host like you guys have here, and he was going to play Almost, not Olmec, and but we did this thing. We got guests because I know people from the entertainment business and stuff, so we had them on, and it was more of a tryout basis, and we did it, and I was like, we did it like 8 of them, and I was like, we didn't release them because I wasn't sure about the purpose and what we were doing, what the long game was, and so I sort of held off, and I was like, nah, I'm just not, I don't think we're ready for this. I don't think we're ready to go. We kind of had a cool studio a little bit, and there was some things I liked about it, and I still do like about it. But then it came to me, then I think what happened was, I don't know what happened. This idea came into my brain that you guys both know the show, right?
Yes.
Right. So I am the giver of the pendant of life, right? So I give you the pendant of life, and that helps you get through the temple to keep you away from the dreaded temple guards, right?
Right.
So I'm like, well, I am the giver of the pendant of life. So I decided to come up with this new thing, And I made a medallion, and it's a pendant of life, and it's from your guide, Kirk Fogg. And I'm like, yeah, this is cool. And I tried it out. I went to Daytona Beach for a 90s con. And I didn't actually have that made yet, but I did have the picture of it made. And then on the back, I wrote Pendant of Life. And I ended up, I just bought 10 of them. And, most of the time what you do is just sign autographs and you take selfies and things like that. So I put on the menu, the guy who represents me for those, he ended up saying, oh, those are really cool. So it's like a wooden pendant of life, just like from the show. And it's the face of Olmec, and I ended up selling them at the convention. And I said, hey, I am the giver of the pendant of life. I said, you never know. You're always going to go through something in your life, and you're going to come up against something. And when you do, you're going to need a pendant of life. And I'm the giver of the pendant of life. And they're like, I want a pendant of life. And I go, okay.
Yeah,
Right. So then I went home and I'm in the process of making them now, where they say on the top pendant of life, on the front pendant in an arc on the top, pendant of life. And I thought we were doing a video one today, so I wore the shirt because I have a shirt now. It says pendant of life and it's Olmec's face, and then it says on the bottom, from your guide Kirk Fogg. And so that's kind of where this thing is starting. Yeah, it's starting with that, and I'm and the other day I went, because I said, so I started a little online, sort of a little online campaign. I'm just starting it now, and it's going to be slow, but I'm just starting it, where I give out pendant of lives to videos that I think are my favorite videos, like to the fastest and the strongest, or the saddest or the sweetest, or the funniest and the fastest, or something like that. And then I give out pendants of life. But what I really want to do is I want to give out pendants of life to people. And so I went the other day to a lady who is one of my best friend's mom, who's 91. She's been battling pneumonia for 5 weeks. And I mean, battling. And, you're 91, you got pneumonia. That's not a good prognosis, and a lot of them, with pneumonia, you go out. But she's been battling it. And because she's got a great attitude, she's got her mind, and she has her family behind her. And actually, the doctor, my friend was saying, I think the doctor wants her to die. He goes, because they're kind of wanting her just to say, oh, I think we've done everything we can. And my buddy turned to the doctor one day and says, oh, I'm sorry, are you God? And the guy was like, what?
Great question.
Yeah, and he avoided my buddy from then on out. But they ended up moving her out of there. And so she's 5 weeks later, and she's still battling. So I said, you know what? Let her be the first one I give the pendant of life to. So I went to her acute care place, and she doesn't know the show, but I kind of preambled it in another video. And then I went down and I said, hey, you've been battling here. I said, you're still going through the temple of your life. And I said, you still need a pendant of life to keep you from these dreaded temple guards that are knocking at your door.
Yeah.
And she loved it. And so I'm going to post that too. So I'm going to start probably reaching out and doing that and finding people who I think are amazing or have got great stories or great something, and give them the pendant of life.
Yeah, I think that could be a great hit for an online show, like a YouTube show, where you give that to people, and it's really inspirational. People need that inspiration. Like the pendant of life is the inspiration they need from depression or whatever things.
Don't you think? I mean, yeah. I mean, stay in touch with me, and keep, I would appreciate the insight or the encouragement, because I don't know where it's taking me, but I know I'm going to come online with it, and I'm going to try to do, and I probably will end up doing the podcast, which will be fun and everything too, but it will also, it'll harken back to the show a little bit. But I think this is what it feels right to me. And I don't, like I said, it may evolve to be something else, but right now it feels right,
Yep. Yeah, you should definitely go forward with it, man. If you need any help getting things set up, just let me know, because I've been at this for a while. So we should be able to assist you.
Okay, I appreciate it. I like you guys' attitude and where you come from, so I like it.
Yeah, I mean, we try to switch things up. You know, I'm a musician. Kevin's a programmer. You know, we like to talk to people from all different positions, all different walks of life, all different industries, which I started, you know, booking. I'm primarily the person who does the booking, and I've been looking more into film and TV lately, and that's actually how we found you. So I'm really glad that I did find you, because this has been really cool, man.
Well, I really appreciate it. It's been great. I know I was like, as soon as you guys reached out to me, and I was like, yes, this is one of those. Yeah, I'm trying to be. It's more about yes now. You know, yes. Do you want to do that? Yes. Do you want to go here? Yes.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that we talked about earlier. Like, we were meant to meet, and I think something like the show that you mentioned is needed, because like when I cruise online, it's so much negativity, so much ignorance, and this is one of the reasons I started the podcast. I wanted to create something other than, you know, the gender wars, race wars, political wars.
Exactly. No, I love it. No, this is the right vibe. No, this is good.
So yeah, man. Yeah, let's definitely work together, and we'll help you with anything that you need help with.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're here for you, man. Absolutely.
Great. I like it.
But I know we're kind of at the top of the hour. Did you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts?
No, I think that was it. Like I said, I think it goes back to, you know, let's talk back. All the doors are open, right? And we just want to, you know, I'm going to make it. This is what I want to leave it with. It's the reason why it's speaking to me. And I said, I don't know. I mean, maybe the legend was real. You know, maybe the legend was real. Maybe the temple, the whole game of Legends of the Hidden Temple reminds me so much of life. You know, I said, and I like the way it feels. It's like, you know, we're born, we have to cross the moat. We have to learn stuff in our lives. So we have to go down the steps of knowledge. And then you get a little bit older and you got to battle it out in your life in the temple games. And then every once in a while you get a shot at running the temple, right?
Exactly.
Right. But you do need a pendant of life to keep you from those dreaded temple guards, and they will come.
Man, that was an amazing way to close the show. Did you want to say anything, Brian?
No, and I mean, this has been a really eye-opening and interesting conversation. And I know we didn't talk too much about the show, but you know, definitely when I was growing up in the '90s, Legends of the Hidden Temple, you know, it was one of my favorite shows. It really was, and that's why it's pretty incredible to be talking to you tonight.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. I really do. And I didn't used to think that it was going to be something that I'd want to talk about for the rest of my life, but I think it's part of my destiny, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Man, we'll have to have you back on, and we can get into some of those other stories, because we took a huge detour.
We did, and I just I touched along. There was a lot of idiosyncrasies to a lot of those stories that.
Oh yeah, and the whole UFO debate is very in vogue now. It's, you know, everyone's talking about UFOs over New Jersey, over New York. You know, drone. Is it a drone? Is it a UFO? What is it?
Well, yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm a doom scroller, so I'm all up to date on all that crap.
It's kind of like you mentioned earlier. Sometimes you just gotta flow with life wherever it takes you.
Right, exactly. I try to leave it. You know, I think we have to try to. I didn't get into this, but I've been a member. I've been a sober guy for 36 years, so I like to wear things like a loose coat. That's what they told me when I first came and got sober. It's like, don't try to grip onto it too much. Wear it like a loose coat. And I like that sort of image, because that way I'm not gripping too hard on things.
Yeah, that's great advice.
But yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. We'd like to thank you for coming on the show, but we'll catch y'all next time.